We are back in Manila after our segments in Siargao and Bacolod. Textile is part of our lives. It's our clothes, our decorative objects, and multiple techniques are at work, from dyeing to printing, weaving to digital technology. Textile is one of the oldest forms of art in history. I'm delighted to welcome Twinkle Ferraren, one of the most talented Filipino textile artists, designer, and entrepreneur. Welcome, Twinkle, to EU Talk. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Manila, but I was always traveling.
Okay.
I mean, as a child, I think my first trip outside the country, I was 6 years old. Ever since then, I just got addicted. So every opportunity I had, I would travel around.
And your family is also from here, from Manila?
Yes, my parents grew up in Manila, but that's what made me want to know more where I came from, like my roots.
So the parents of your parents?
Yes.
And where are they from?
My father's side is mostly from the north, and then my mom's side is mostly from Iloilo, Visayas.
Okay, from the Visayas.
Yeah.
Where did you get the inspiration for what you do now, and can you explain what you do?
I've been drawing ever since I was a child, and I was just always dabbling in different forms of art. I tried candle making, stationery, tie-dye, and then up until I was around high school, that's when I started making fashion accessories. My mom used to have a shopping center in Greenbelt that became my playground, so after school I was always hanging out there, and then she had a corner where they were featuring indigenous fabrics and brands. And I think that's what sparked my interest into wanting to know about what are Philippine textiles, what are the indigenous groups here. And it was Grace Nono, who's a singer. She had a fashion line that time, and she introduced me to the first Tiboli woman that I met. So ever since then, we've been working together. And I think that sparked the whole journey.
From the Cordillera?
Tiboli is from Mindanao.
From Mindanao,
Yes.
okay.
So that was my first entry point into this world.
Into indigenous fabrics.
Yes.
Correct. And you also work in the Cordillera?
Yes, so I moved to Baguio.
Oh, you moved to Baguio
Yes.
altogether. Okay.
When I was deep in my research, like about wanting to know where I came from, I always found myself going up to Baguio because I was also working with a Japanese textile maker there. So my great-great-grandfather is actually German. His name is Otto Scherer. They call him the first white man in Baguio.
Okay.
So when I found that out, I was like, oh, you know, like I felt this strong sense to just
To belong.
yes, to stay there, see what I could do, see what
Right.
could happen.
Did you study by yourself, or did you go to a design school? How did it work?
So I really wanted to take fashion. I knew right away that that's the course I wanted
Right.
to take. Originally, I wanted to study in Italy, so I took Italian lessons in Berlin.
Okay.
But the schedule didn't work out, so I ended up studying in London, like
Okay.
for a few courses for fashion. I would save up, go to school, come back, work, and then study another course.
Right.
And then come back again to work. And then it was in 2006 when I was already getting into the fashion scene here.
Right.
But I remember I was in Paris attending these textile trade shows. So that also opened up my eyes into the business side of it, was like the trends, the forecasting, the raw materials, and there's all these worlds involved in the industry, you know, that it's not just a fabric. I got really amazed with that, and that's when I started drawing my collection, because we were gonna do a fashion show around December that year. My collection was purely all Philippine fabrics. It just started pouring.
And what kind of textile were you offering the public? Was it clothes? Was
Yes.
it? Yes.
It was for fashion. Women's, for that first collection, yes, it was all women. It was mostly jackets, but jackets with inspiration of the bahag. Dresses, I had a lot of pants also, and tops. It was only later on that I started doing some menswear.
Why is that? Is it because women are more accessible market for fashion?
I think it's also because I think of what I would like to wear.
Okay.
So maybe that's why
Sure.
I think of the women. And then it's when my dad and my brothers who started asking me, then
Yeah, you are.
that's when I started doing men.
Would you consider yourself a designer, an artist, or an entrepreneur, or everything at the same time? All
the
of that?
above, yeah. I mean, I started really in the arts, and then
Right.
I wanted to see how to put arts into something more functional. So that's why the fashion, making it wearable art. When I got deeper into learning the other side, which is the textile side, that's where I started doing textile development. And of course, to be able to do what you like, make money. So that's where the entrepreneurship
Of course.
came in.
Where did it all started? Was it drawing? Was it playing with the material?
I think for me, drawing.
Drawing first.
Yeah, I was making paper dolls. So that's how I was doing the designs. And I had a lot of Barbie dolls.
Right.
My mom used to have a Barbie clothing line. I just remembered now. Probably when
And did you relate to that, or did you want to depart from the prototype of the Barbie?
Of course. Make it for...
So we should, I don't know how we should put it, because that can be a bit controversial, but I suppose this is part of your inspiration,
Yeah.
right?
I didn't like what the clothes of the Barbies were there in the boxes, so
Right.
I was just imagining what
Something
they
else.
would wear.
This is really the start. So the artists decided, okay, let's try something else.
Yes.
Let's try to imagine something else, and then you started to grow in that direction.
Yeah.
Right. What are, according to your own criteria, your highest achievement so far?
Maybe before, I would say the fact that I was able to do fashion shows abroad and exhibits. But now that I'm a little bit older, I think it also matters if the people that you work with are also happy.
Or inspired by you?
Yeah, with the communities. When I feel like they're not happy, I am not that happy also.
Right.
I think this year, 2 milestones happened to me that I consider pretty big. So I've always wanted to do something like living in Baguio. I think I really got inspired. There's arts everywhere, and I was there to also just learn more about textiles. So we did a project called Art Weave, where I gathered visual artists from the Cordillera and weavers, and I let them collaborate. So we did a workshop where we taught artists how to weave, and then we taught weavers how to paint, so that they understand each other's languages. And then from there, they did like an output, which we exhibited last June. It's something I've always wanted to see happen, or how it could happen, especially in a place where, you know, sometimes when it's also very deeply traditional, you have to be careful with, you know, like, is this okay? Is this too much?
Right.
You have to there's a lot of
Right.
things.
Is it something that concerns you, the whole debate about cultural appropriation?
That happens too, but then for me, I always have conversations also with the weavers, and a lot of the weavers that we worked with for this project are very open, and they're also more contemporary weavers. So it's a dialogue more than just me dictating, or more than
Or
the art.
appropriating their
Yeah.
culture. Where would you think the main challenges in being a textile designer in the Philippines?
Raw materials. I was so adamant, you know, like that obsession with researching about Philippine textiles. I wanted my whole collection to be Philippine textiles. And that when we did a fashion show in Rome, I was able to do a whole collection that was all pineapple silk, abaca. It was all the Philippine fibers. So I was really excited about that. That's why earlier I said, it's a tricky question about what you consider a success, because it was a success for me that we were able to do that collection and bring it to Rome. But when we came back, Yolanda happened, so we couldn't really move forward with the production, with making the actual textiles. There's still so many things to do in the backside. Maybe a mix of a little bit of education and technology also could be there. Knowledge transfers. Like a lot of the people I work with are also old, and there's not a lot of passing down that knowledge to the youth. And because it's all handmade, it takes time. So if we were to really think about competing globally, there's like a lot of things that have to be done.
When you think about the little girl that was playing in mom's shop and dreaming about what you became, and when you think about this little girl, what would be your advice to a little girl today that would have the same dream?
I think I would tell her to just keep on going if
Right.
this is something that you really love, because you're gonna find strength in that love and passion for what you do. Traveling and education is like the biggest investment you could do for yourself. And I mean, it's the best. My savings went to traveling and going to school whenever I can. Traveling was always inspirational to see where I could bring my arts, where I could bring the crafts, where it could be in a certain level.
The image that was coming to me was the image of the wings. So you would tell her basically to grow her wings and travel the world. But at the same time, what I also heard from you is that you would probably tell her to find her roots. So that would be the combination of both, correct?
Yes.
What is the dominance here? Is it more after you travel, finding your roots? What was the inspiration in traveling? And what is the other inspiration in finding the roots? For example, for you now in Baguio.
We were exposed to traveling more, and when we were going around, we saw how a lot of European countries really highlight their roots, their origin, the history, the heritage. So when I came back, I also wanted to know more about where I came from, like what are my roots, where did I come from, what do we have that's something different that other countries don't have. They're both very important. It's like the deeper you go also with your roots, the more you have a better appreciation also when you do your travels. And I think vice versa, because when you're also exposed outside, you come back and you see what's there of your roots that you could also share with
Right.
others.
And what is very interesting in your story is also that you chose to grow your business here in the Philippines.
I wanted to meet all the different indigenous communities here. It fascinated me, and I think it became like a relationship, and it's been years of research and also traveling and learning about them and meeting them.
And when you think now ahead, where do you want to be in a few years from now?
I still see myself like having my home base, but traveling,
So,
doing more.
becoming global?
Yeah, I want to be able to show this. It would be nice to share and then see also what they see, like that kind of like exchange.
And when you think going global, do you mean more here in Southeast Asia?
I think wherever the wind would take me,
Okay.
like I don't want to limit it, because you never know where these connections can
Absolutely,
be.
will lead you. Is there a question I forgot to ask you?
This one, the story
Why not?
of this textile.
Yes.
So this was done in collaboration with an Ifugao weaver who lives in Baguio, and we joined a competition last year. It was a textile design competition, and one of the national artists actually live in Baguio, Kidlat Tahimik. He has a wood carving of this indigenous myth lady called Inhabian, who's like the goddess of the wind. And the story was that when the typhoon was coming, she wasn't being flown away because she was attached to her backstrap loom, which was under the hut. And because she was a weaver, so I love the story, and then I wanted to know more about it. So I asked the other people from Ifugao what the legend is or what the story is. And so I created, so this is an ikat technique. Ikat is where you tie the different yarns and then you do the dyeing. Doing this at 3 in the morning in the cold air, wind, in Baguio so that we could finish it in time. The zigzag diamond patterns were for me to reflect like the wind movements and the air. And then I chose these colors. For me, like it's how I would paint the wind and the night sky. We mixed it also with like velvety yarns because this is supposed to be a blanket.
Okay.
So I wanted it to be
Comfy.
yeah, exactly. And we won second place.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Anything else? I think
okay. Yeah.
I think we're okay.
Yes.